My name is Hannah, and this is my year of less stuff. Hey y'all, here's what happened. I filmed this look. I filmed a very chatty get ready with me, forthcoming. This video will go up before that video, but in that video I'm catching you up on a lot of things. I recommend watching it when it goes up, but I got out of control with my makeup. I was like doing this intense eye look, and then I was testing out this lip color, and it ended up being kind of intense. I'm not against it. It's just a little bit more editorial and bold than the looks that I've kind of been preferring these days for everyday wear and for filming. And so I feel kind of overly made up, and obviously that's making me self-conscious, and that's why I'm bringing it up. But I'm not against it. I'm not against the overall effect and the choices. I just wanted to put that out there in case anyone's like, OMG, what's happening? So this video is about how I spent my budget in January, and in it, I'm going to report back about all of the things that I bought with my budget in January, what they added up to, and about all of the other things I acquired in January by other means other than buying them with my beauty budget, what it all added up to in terms of stuff. I'm also going to talk about how much stuff exited my life this month, and then how I'm doing with my overall stuff number and my overall goal to have fewer, nicer things at the end of the year. Along the way, I'll be giving brief reviews of some of the items, generally chatting about how the acquisitions made me feel, and sharing some like larger scale ideas that have been visiting me as a result of this month and how it unfolded. If you haven't seen my check-in video, my January check-in, this is one of those months where I really do recommend watching that check-in before you watch the video about how I spent my budget. There was a lot of larger behavioral and emotional context this month, and even though I will be touching on some of it, I'm not sure that I can totally do it justice in this video the way that I did it in that video, because this video is mostly going to be about the things themselves. It was a stressful month, and I'm examining a lot of contradictory behaviors across these two videos and clarifying everything and communicating everything as a tall order. So I feel like it would be in both of our best interests if you were all caught up on that video before watching this video. So here's hoping that you are. Here's hoping that we're both on the same page as we go ahead and get into the meat of the video. Okay, here we go. First, we're going to talk about how much of my actual yearly beauty budget I spent in January. We're going to talk about what I bought and how much it added up to in terms of just spending, like how much money I spent on beauty budget items. Then I'm going to move on to talking about other things that I acquired this month, so replacements and gifts that I ended up keeping, and then how much it all added up to overall in terms of stuff. So curiously, the first way that I spent my budget, the first expenditure, didn't result in me acquiring anything, and I feel like that's the most interesting thing about it. I decided to try out a clothing rental service. I'm trying the one called Nuuly, and it's the one that my friend Lauren from the channel Lauren May Beauty is also using. She actually did a really good and thorough review of it, which I'll try to remember to link down below. When she started doing it and talking to me about it, like every time I saw her over the past month or two, she just looked amazing. Like she's wearing these like really cool chic things, and I was just like, girl! And it's all stuff that she had rented from Nuuly. And when we first talked about it, I was like, that's not really for me. I'm kind of a fashion collector. I like to have actually purchased my items because then they feel more concretely like an extension of my identity, and that's what fashion is to me, blah, blah, blah. I was like, nah. Like I had all of these weird, egotistical, like Enneagram 4 style reasons why clothing rental wasn't for me. And then as I moved into the year of less stuff, like taking it more seriously, thinking about it, I realized that there's a chance that the idea of clothing rental is actually a really good fit for the goal of having fewer things. Because there's so much stuff I find, especially in fashion, that I end up buying for specific events or specific kinds of weather or specific feelings, like feeling a certain way, but that it's not necessarily realistic for me to invest a lot of money in a really nice version of that thing because I'm just not gonna wear it as frequently. I've been thinking a lot this month, and this will become apparent later in the video, that it makes sense for me to invest in like really, really nice pajamas or a really, really nice house robe or really, really nice sweatpants, because those are the things that I genuinely live in, like I live my life in. And with those kinds of things, I'm gonna use it up and wear it out. Like I'm gonna wear it out until it can't be worn anymore. So it makes sense to pick really nice, perfect versions of those things. But a sweater or a jacket where I'm like splashing out, or where it's like fashion statement of the month or of the half year of the season or something, it makes a little less sense to spend a chunk of my budget on that kind of thing, because it's just not necessarily something that I'm going to be living in and not necessarily something I'm going to be wearing out. But I do think there's a place for those kinds of things. So this was my thinking when I decided to try Nuuly. I was like, wouldn't it be interesting to find out what the effect is of just renting clothes for a month, spending some of my beauty budget on that, but then sending them all back at the end of the month and not having ended up with any new clothes. So I'm testing it out. This is my second month. I did like it enough in the first month to keep trying it for a second month. And then I actually got the chance to try another clothing subscription service. It's the one called Le Tote. I'm not paying for it. It was a gift certificate from a sweet, generous, wonderful angel. So I'm actually trying 2 clothing subscription services at once, which means I'll be able to give a really good, thorough review, and hopefully I'll be able to retroactively review Rent the Runway in that video. And I do that because I had a chance to try Rent the Runway for a month last year as well. So big video about clothing subscription services and all the pros and cons, and comparing and contrasting these 3 services is coming. I think that's going to be really, really fun to film. So far, I feel like Nuuly specifically, the one that I'm paying for, the one that I spent some of my budget on, $88, that's how much it costs per month to rent 6 things. So far, I feel like there are really powerful pros for me with my current lifestyle and my goals, and there are also some powerful cons, to be honest. The major pro is that renting from Nuuly killed my desire to buy clothes last month, like the kinds of clothes I was renting. I didn't even browse. I was just like so excited to be wearing the clothes that I had rented. So excited to think about like renting more the next month. So because I already have some nice things and I already have a lot of what I need, being able to rent these clothes kind of headed off at the pass what my current problem is, which is that I keep wanting to add more beautiful things on top when I kind of already have enough. So that was really cool. And obviously it was so fun to wear the clothes. The sweater I'm wearing today is rented from Nuuly. Case in point, how fun is this? But a curious con, I feel like the excitement of the Nuuly rentals caused me to cherish less the clothes that I actually own. Like I wore them less, I spent less time with them, I ignored them a little bit, and I don't like that. That isn't really the direction that I want to be moving in. So in a way, it was a way of like distracting myself with the shiny new things, and it kept me from sinking deeper into just being comfortable with things staying the same and wearing the same thing over and over again and just loving what I already have. So I'm still trying to decide whether the pros will outweigh the cons or the cons will outweigh the pros. Stay tuned. When I decided to rent a Nuuly box last month, I was still in a pretty good headspace. That was a very rational decision, just in terms of like a way to spend my budget that wasn't acquisitional and an experiment and something that I could review on my channel. Like all of it made total sense to me, and it was at the very beginning of the month. So that was before things started getting really dark. The next time I spent my budget was in the middle of when things had started to get really dark, and that was when I bought 6 cream cheek products in a pretty short space of time. So the first one was actually kind of a good experience. I was out with my friend Julia. She has a little baby. We were just on a little excursion, taking out the baby. Things hadn't quite gotten as dark as they were going to get then. But then all the rest of the cream cheeks, the other 5, I bought all of them just as a way of trying to escape from the darkness inside me and trying to like get out of like the haunted house that I was living in emotionally. I was just trying to like get some light and brightness. It was just very base behavior, very dark. That's what the check-in covers explicitly, so I don't feel like I need to go into it. If you've seen it, you already know what I'm talking about. I'm also not going to review those products because I also hauled those products and did like a really thorough review video where I showed what they all look like on, and I went into detail about the formulas and the colors and everything. So if you haven't seen that, but you want to know about those 6 cream cheek products, then click through and watch that video. I'll try to remember to leave it linked below. But it was a Charlotte Tilbury Glow Wand, which I still love, 2 replacement Kjaer Weis products that went into those replaceable compacts. So I had the empty compacts, I'd had them for years, and I put replacement pans into them. There was the Ritual Defeat blush in Eros, that brown blush that I love, the Can Make cream blush, and then the Physicians Formula blush elixir. So I'm not going to review those here, but I will report back that I still love them all. I still love them all, And I would say that the blushes that I've been wearing the most are the Can Make Cream Cheek. That's really interesting. It's the least expensive one. I got it for $8. And I've been reaching for it a lot because of the formula. And I've also been wearing Kjaer Weis Joyful a lot. Those are the two I've been wearing the most, and they're the most traditional blush colors. They don't lean as brown or maybe even as like brownie orange as any of the other ones. So that's been really interesting. I've really been enjoying those two colors and those two formulas. And then I've been wearing the Charlotte Tilbury Glow Wand probably the most of all. I've been using it pretty much every day. All 5 blushes and the Glow Wand have impressed me thoroughly, and I feel at this moment as though my cream cheek cup overfloweth. And I'm very happy with that state of things. So I wasn't in the best headspace when I went seeking cream cheeks, but even in that bad headspace, I was aware that this was an area of my life in which I had fewer things, but I didn't have nicer things. And this brings me to one of the main things that I wanted to cover in this video, because it's one of the main things that I've been thinking about this month that I don't think I would have been able to project the logic of unless I had actually gone into the year of less stuff and started going through it. I've been thinking about how the journey towards fewer, nicer things sometimes means just decluttering. So if you already have nice things, but you just have a lot of extra stuff, then in order to have fewer, nicer things, all you have to do is let go of stuff. So my eyeshadow palettes are a great example. I have gone through periods of time over the past, especially the past year with receiving PR, where I felt like I just had too many eyeshadow palettes. And among those too many, I didn't have fewer, nicer eyeshadow palettes. I just had so many eyeshadow palettes. I had more than I could use in my lifetime. And among them, there were some really nice ones, like the Natasha Denona Gold palette that Ellie gave me for Christmas, the Natasha Denona Lila palette that Lauren gave me when she decluttered it. There were just, to me, there are some absolute gems. It was as though there was a collection of fewer, nicer eyeshadow palettes inside of my larger collection of too many good or decent or like worth keeping until now eyeshadow palettes. So in order to have fewer, nicer things in my eyeshadow collection, all I had to do was declutter my singles, declutter my palettes, and as the collection became smaller, it became nicer because more and a larger percentage, as I decluttered it, a larger and larger percentage of what I had became like so nicer. The nicest stuff started taking over as I let go of the mediocre stuff. But for some categories, especially categories of oft-used or oft-worn things, getting to fewer, nicer things means not only letting go of the worn out or the not nice things, but also acquiring some really, really nice versions of that type of thing to be your one and only, or to be your just like one special handful in the case of my cream blushes. For eyeshadows, I only needed fewer, and then the collection would automatically become nicer. And that effect really played out this month. Like I talked, I think, in my check-in about going to it was the same trip on which I was buying some cream blushes. I went to Sephora and I swatched the Natasha Denona Mini Gold palette, and I really wanted it, but I already have fewer, nicer eyeshadows, and that was the thing that stopped me from buying it. But when it came to blushes, I only had fewer and I didn't have nicer until I bought some. Now, this idea is really helping me out right now. It's really making sense to me. It's helping me understand my behavior this month retroactively, and it's also helping me think about how I want to behave going forward just in my life. However, I am aware that this can be, in some circumstances, a dangerous idea. And I think that it maybe would have been a dangerous idea or like a dangerous philosophy for pre-no-buy Hannah. Before my no-buy year, the things that I owned didn't feel nice enough for me. They didn't feel nice enough to give me that thrill. And that was simply by virtue of the fact that I owned them already. The dementedness of my constant buying behavior was rooted in a rejection of my life as it was, my life exactly as it was, and that included the stuff that I already owned, because that was part of my life as it was. If you'd like to hear more about this and you haven't watched it, I suggest my video about how my no-buy year changed my life. I'll also try to remember to link that one down below, but if you have seen that, then you will remember that one of the amazing gifts, the most amazing gift of my no-buy year, was that after it settled into my bones, I mean, first I had some freakouts, but after I kind of climbed through the freakouts and went through a bunch of stuff, eventually I was able to see the preciousness of the life I already have, and that includes being able to see the preciousness of the things that I already have. In the wake of that change, I'm highly aware of how much nicer stuff I already have. And it still feels new to me. I newly have the spiritual ability to value that nicer stuff as if it were new. And that's something I didn't have before. In the old days, my constant buying was a way of trying to have nicer stuff, but it was futile and it was a cycle because nothing was ever nice enough for me. I didn't have the ability to feel that way about the things that I owned. Now, a lot of my stuff does feel nice enough to me. I feel like I have nice enough eyeshadows, and that keeps me from wanting to buy more. And that also allows me to spot the areas of my life in which buying something nice and new actually would be a boon. And this month, that was blush. That all being true, as I said in the check-in, I still didn't need to buy so many, and I didn't need to spend so much money on them. And having bought so many and having spent so much on them, that was all a result of just being in kind of a dark place and having the ghosts of my old behaviors revisit me. The total cost, like the total amount of my beauty budget that I spent on those 6 cream cheek products was $146. A lot. That theoretically, if I was breaking my yearly budget, which is $1,800 down month by month, theoretically that would have been my entire budget for 1 month. So I spent roughly 1 month's budget just on that cream cheek haul. I think like 80, 90 bucks would have been enough. I think that 3 or 4 would have been enough. But that just wasn't how it went down. And I do love all of them, and I have been using all of them. I think that if I were to go back and like be really strict and stringent with myself and be like, you have to only have like get 4 out of these 6, knowing what I know now, I would probably omit the Kjaer Weis bronzer actually, because it just isn't quite as emollient as the blush. And I would probably omit the maybe the Physicians Formula Blush Elixir, although I have really been enjoying it. I have really been loving it, and I don't want to give any of them back. I don't want to return any of them for my money back. So all in all, I'm pleased, even though the whole thing was a lot. It was kind of a lot. So with my Savage cream cheek hunt and my payment for the Nuuly rental, I had spent $234 then, after I finished hauling all those blushes. That's way more than roughly 1 month's allotment of my yearly budget. It's way more than I was hoping to spend in January. And at that point, I had also spent more than I was imagining I would spend monthly on replacement items. I will go over the replacements in a little bit and talk about the place that replacements are occupying in my project. What I will say now is that I feel like all of the replacements were actually amazing decisions, and I do understand why it went down the way it did in terms of replacements. I don't regret the money or the stuff when it comes to those replacements or the other things that I bought with my budget. However, at that time, mid-month, I was definitely using all the purchases, the blushes, the replacements, even some things like I bought myself a new water bottle, which is technically like a homeware, and I'm really glad I did. I'm actually going to talk about it in an upcoming favorites video. So it was a great choice, but I was using little things like that, like my water bottle, and I replaced like our shower caddy, which was completely falling apart, and I love the one that I got, but I was like stringing together purchases that were justified in one way or another, either as like replacements or things you really needed, or I was buying blushes with my budget and I was stringing them together to have a constant stream of things to just try to like disrupt the ickiness that I was feeling. I was effed up and I knew it. So I felt bad about what I was doing, even though every single individual thing that I was acquiring was something that I'm glad to have. I'm still glad to have. And every single thing was getting me closer to fewer, nicer things. And that feeling bad about the circumstances is why the last thing that I bought with my budget, because it's not over yet, the last thing that I bought with my budget is kind of the worst, even though it's kind of the best thing that I've like ever bought and just the best thing ever in my life, and I love it so much. I just had to change my camera battery. I hope everything's okay. So this last purchase with my budget, it's one of these things where even though it was expensive, to me it is worth what I paid. And when it comes to how I'm spending chunks of my overall yearly budget, it is like a textbook example of how buying one nicer thing can push me towards fewer things, because by spending all the money that I spent on this one thing, it precludes me from buying a bunch of things with that same amount of money. I hope I'm being clear. What I mean is that spending the amount I spent on this item, $130, that's how much I spent on the last item that I bought with my budget in January. By spending that on one thing, it keeps me from spending roughly that same amount on like 6 things, like I did with the blushes, for example. And theoretically, this purchase of one thing for that amount is more in line with my goals than spending roughly that same amount on 6 things. And this last item that I bought is more special to me, really, in the long run, in the large scope, than any of those 6 cream products that I bought. And there's also only one of it instead of there being 6 of it. I'm gonna show it to you now. Are you ready? I don't know if you'll be able to get the full picture. You can't get the full picture, and I don't want to put it on right now, but it's a little bed jacket. It's a little silk robe that is short, so it's not like a long full-length robe. It's kind of like a robe style pajama top. It just covers most of my butt cheeks, so I can wear it around the house. If it's just Joe and me, I can wear it around the house without something underneath, or with just underwear underneath or something. But it's not quite the same as a house robe. It's really just a sweet bed jacket. And you will be able to see the full picture. It's got kimono style sleeves. You will be able to see the full picture in the upcoming Get Ready With Me, where I put this look on, because I was wearing this when I got ready. And I do have to say that when I was buying it, part of my thinking was that it would be so amazing to wear for Get Ready With Me videos. This is a part of my life. I come on camera from time to time wearing my like loungewear, my bedwear, what I was wearing when I was sleeping, or what I was wearing when I was around the house, when I'm getting ready on camera. And what a lovely thing to be able to wear in YouTube demonstrations. Just, I mean, honestly, I was way more excited about doing a Get Ready With Me today because I had this to wear than I ordinarily would be. And I hope that continues, because I would like to do more videos where I'm putting on makeup, but it's a little bit hard for me to get myself to do that. It's a little bit awkward. I don't always feel like I quite have the tools. So this just helps me feel a little bit more set up to do that. So this is actually one of 2 robes that I bought this month, but the other one technically counts as a straight up replacement. So I'll talk about that when I get to the replacement section. This is it's too frou-frou. It's like too extra to be a replacement. Even though I love it so much and I've been wearing it so much that I actually kind of have a mind to get my hands on the matching pants if I can find them. When I bought this, it was way on sale. It's by a designer sleepwear brand called Morgan Lane, and I would never buy this stuff full price. I would never have purchased this full price. I think it was like several $100s, but it was the prices were slashed after the holiday season, and so when I found this, it was on sale. But the matching pants were sold out. I may keep poking around, and if I can find the matching pants to this somewhere to buy, I might go ahead and buy them because I love it that much. I would love to complete the set and have this be my one pair of pajamas. I currently have one pair of pajamas only. It's like a set of cotton vintage men's sleepwear, like a shorts and a button down. I purchased them at a flea market. It's a true vintage set of garments. Like they were already worn. They were already old when I bought them. And then I've worn them a lot and slept in them a lot. And I feel like that pajama set is kind of getting to the point where it's like, it's so old that it's not even clean when it's clean. Like when I clean it and wash it and dry it, it still feels like a little bit old and gross. And so it's pretty much time for it to go. And so technically, if I do replace this whole set, like the top and the pants, if I do replace those pajamas with it, it will technically be a replacement. But replacing like a vintage men's pajama set that I got at a flea market with like a full set of like designer silk pajamas, even if I bought them on sale, I can't really justify that with my current finances. I can't justify that as being just like a replacement that doesn't have to be budgeted for. To me, even though I'm replacing one thing with another, I'm just not rich enough to be doing that. It's like not the life that I'm living. But when it comes to budgeting for fewer nicer things and having a finite budget and choosing to spend a significant chunk of my yearly budget on this because I feel like it'll be worth it to me, that is the kind of life I'm living. That's a choice that I'm okay with. So that's why I'm not calling this a replacement. Speaking of my sleepwear, I have also gone ahead and gotten rid of the 2 old nasty t-shirts of Joe's that I was sometimes sleeping in. When I inventoried my clothes at the beginning of the year, I said I had 1 set of pajamas, which is the vintage pair I was just talking about, and then I had these 2 big t-shirts that were like Joe's old t-shirts. I don't have those anymore. They both went this month. They both counted as stuff out. I just never really felt good in them. They were just like serviceable, but kind of icky, and I never felt like I was living my best life with them. So I am marching towards fewer, nicer things with a pajama revolution over here. But I chose such nice things that it's something that I had to spend my beauty budget on. I'm glad that it will end up being a replacement. If I can find, even if I can't find the matching pants to it, I'll probably get some sort of pants that suit it, like just plain black silk pajama pants. And then this will end up actually being a replacement. And I'm glad that that's true, because it just makes it feel more right to have decided to spend that money. But I straight up bought this because when I saw it, it was so beautiful and it was so me, and it just gripped my heart so hard that I just like flew off the handle and immediately decided to upgrade my pajama situation at the not insignificant cost of $130. And that, in spite of the fact that I truly love it and that it's perfect for me and that is just true, it's that flying off the handle that was a problem for me. I didn't like that. And that was the moment that I was referring to in my check-in. When I saw myself, I was like there, I saw it and I was just like, buying it, I'm buying it, I'm buying it. And I saw myself doing it and I was like, Hannah, this is how you were. This isn't how you are. But I just couldn't. I didn't have the wherewithal. I was in too dark of a place. I was having too grimy of a month and I wanted it too badly. It was like too perfect and I wanted it too badly. I didn't have the willpower to stop myself. That moment that I described in the check-in, this was the purchase that I was talking about. So that wasn't great. But budget-wise, spending-wise, I'm realizing now, after the dust has settled a little bit, that this doesn't necessarily represent a problem for me. It just means that I'm going to have to spend less later in the year, live with the consequences of my actions by not really buying anything or not buying very much in February and maybe even in March. The total that I spent with the Nuuly, the cheek products, and the silk bed jacket was $364. My yearly budget for beautiful things is $1,800. As I said before, that breaks down to roughly $150 per month. So I actually didn't just overspend by an extra month, but even more than that, because 2 months combined would have been $300 and I spent $364. So I spent even more than January's budget and February's budget combined. If I'm looking at it through the lens of the months, I even spent part of March's budget as well. I way overspent. So I'm putting myself on pretty much a low buy, like a no buy-ish, pretty much low buy, at least until the beginning of March. The one exception being those pants. If I can find the matching pants to these, then I will go ahead and snag them. But then that will mean that I will have overspent even further into the year and I'll have to wait even longer before I start kind of shopping around and thinking about spending my beauty budget again. By choice. That's not my rules. I mean, by the rules of my year, I could like spend all the rest of the $1,800 today and then just go on a no buy for the entire rest of the year. It's just what I want. I want to try to moderate. I want to try to meet it out as much as I can and give myself some flexibility. So I'm feeling 2 main takeaways about how it ended up going down with my budget spending in January. The first one is that I'm realizing that moderation and spending with a fluid budget doesn't necessarily mean that you spend the same amount every month. Even though I'm thinking about it, in order to keep myself on track, I'm trying to like think about what would roughly be the equal amount to spend per month. Moderation doesn't necessarily mean that you end up doing that. In fact, it's kind of like the opposite of that is what it means. It makes total sense that I could spend lots one month and then nothing the next month, and maybe even nothing the month after that, especially in the context of a year-long budget. It's a less perfectionist and more realistic way of moderating, but it still results in the same level of financial health. So I'm a bit surprised that it went down this way. I didn't expect it. And I don't feel good about the emotional state that I was in mid-month when I bought all of those things. But at the end of the day, I'm not worried about my yearly budget because I know that I have the ability to not buy things for months on end. I proved that to myself with my no-buy year. And then the other takeaway for me here is that the focus on fewer, nicer things is making me really realistic about the things that I use the most. the things I really reach for and wear on my face the absolute most. My staple type items as opposed to my like extra and occasional type items. I only want to replace my stuff with versions of it that I'm going to wear out. And that means that everything I've acquired, I've tried to make it something that I really am going to live in one way or another. I feel like I'm going to live in this robe in a way that's slightly different from the way in which I'm going to live in my Charlotte Tilbury Spotlight wand. But I can tell you right now, I'm going to use up that thing. I am going to use that Charlotte Tilbury Spotlight wand down to its very last drop. Mark my words, before the end of the year. I believe that that's going to be something that was stuff in and stuff out. That's a makeup item that I love so much, and I also don't have anything else like it. So I am like living in it this year. And I'm also hoping to live in this until I wear it out, or maybe because I spent so much money on it and because it's such a beautiful designer fabric and the silk is so high quality, maybe it'll never wear out, and maybe I'll be wearing it when I'm 80, because I think I would look freaking gorgeous in this as an 80-year-old woman. Can you even imagine? This robe took 7% of my yearly budget. And I think it was a good use of 7% of my yearly budget. I endorse my decision to drop a full 7% of my yearly budget on this one thing. This is maybe like a third takeaway couched in yet another discussion of this robe. I'm excited that I know myself well enough to be able to spot a thing that I'm going to live in and use up and wear out at first glance. It's taken me a while to get there. There was a lot of trial and error, but at this point, I feel confident both about the cheek products, the cream cheek products, and about this type of thing. The second I saw it, I knew it was right for me. And that's great. But on the other hand, there are a lot of expensive things that would be right for me. Not the cost, not the price, but just the thing itself. There are way more things that when I see it, I know it's right for me right away, and I know that I would love it forever, and I know that I would wear it out or use it up. There's way more things that fit that definition than I can afford to buy, than my budget can cover. I indulged in it this time, right? This time when it happened, I went ahead and I actually did buy the thing. But the consequence of that, what that means for me is that later, down the line in this year, maybe even soon, I'm going to see another thing and I'm going to have all the exact same feelings that I had when I saw this, but on that occasion, I'm not going to be able to actually go ahead and buy the thing, and that would be because on this occasion, I did. I mean, I can probably do it a few more times this year, but just a few more times, and one of those times I've already used up. Like, I've used one of my tokens. I've made my bed, and now I have to lie in it. Luckily, I'll be wearing this robe and I'm lying in it, and I'll look fierce. So let's talk numbers. With my budget, I purchased a total of 7 things. Now we're getting into the part of the video that I'm afraid is going to be the most controversial, but I feel very confident in my decision about this, you guys. I'm just putting it out there. I thought long and hard about this, and I feel very confident in my decision. I'm not going to count the Kjaer Weis replacements as stuff in, and here's why. This is my reason. When I counted my stuff at the beginning of the year, I counted the compacts. I'll get them in hand to make my point more clear. These are the compacts. They were in my backups box at the beginning of the year. So when I started the year, I was laden with stuff. I had these 1,000 things that I was lugging through life, my belongings, and these were 2 of them. So when I went through and I counted all my things, I counted this and I counted this. If I haven't panned these, actually whether I have or have not panned these blushes, these inserts that I purchased, these replacements, by the end of the year. But say I haven't. So say at the end of the year, there's like half of this product left in here and half of this product left in here. When I go through and I count my stuff, I'm going to count this as 1. I'm going to count this as 1. It would not be natural to count the compact as one thing and then to count the blush insert as another thing. It just doesn't make sense. This is just one thing. The fact that these blushes are replaceable, that is such a boon for those of us who are trying to have fewer, nicer things. They're so environmentally conscious. It's the future, right? It's the future to be able to just buy one item one time and then to be able to keep replacing its contents, like you refill a water glass with water instead of having to buy a new bottle of water every time. And so there's no waste. It's exciting that I own these things, and it's exciting that 2 out of my 7 purchases this month were just bits of money that I spent to refill something that I already owned. I feel like when I purchased this originally, that was when I took on one item into my life. And by virtue of this being such a cool system, such a forward-thinking and environmentally friendly system, by virtue of that, which is virtuous on the part of the brand, Kier Weiss, and by virtue of my having chosen to invest in a product like this and to support the brand. So by virtue of both of us and our choices, I can keep owning just one thing and replenish it. And so I feel like Kier Weiss and I together have earned me the ability to replace my cheek products from this brand without gaining an extra item. I feel like that's kind of the point of refillable makeup. And I want to honor that with my system. So even though I made 7 individual purchases, in terms of my stuff number, the amount of stuff that I'm like lugging through life, it didn't go up by 2 when I put replacement pans in these. It only went up by 5 this month. It only went up by 5 in terms of what I purchased with my budget, but it went up by way more than 5 overall, mostly because of replacements. So I have some thoughts about what's going on in the replacements category now as I launch this new project. I spent more on replacements than I had intended to in January. And that's part of why I didn't feel good about also spending more than I had intended to of my actual beauty budget. It was like all of it combined that I was feeling bad about. But now that I've had some time to think about it and just cool off a little bit, I've realized that it makes total sense that there would have been like a burst of spending on replacement type items right after I crossed the threshold from having to spend my budget on replacement items and practical things, cross the threshold from that situation through to a situation where I'm allowed to just replace practical items as the need arises. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that there are a few things that I have needed to replace for a long time, but I was dragging my feet and not replacing them because they were too boring for me to want to spend my budget on them. For example, the very first thing that I did in 2020 was to replace my sneakers, my beaters, with the exact same sneaker. This is the second time I've done this. I think all 3 times that I purchased these sneakers, is that true? The first time too? I think maybe. I think I've purchased this exact sneaker from eBay 3 times. 3 times. The ones that I had at the end of last year were so worn out, and I did try to wash them in the washing machine, but it just made them super disgusting. It did not work out. I think it was partly because they were so gross. I wear them without socks, and they had absorbed so much stink that even though they were like a little bit cleaner on the outside, the first time I wore them after having washed them, they smelled to high heavens. It was just, they were done. They were kaput. So I replaced them again. That pair that I was just describing, the kaput pair, I purchased them from eBay at the beginning of 2019. So this is the 3rd time I've bought this exact pair of sneakers. They were not secondhand, like it's not like they had been worn before, but they were being resold. These are long discontinued. They're no longer available. I think they're like at least 3 years out of production. But they were only $40 because they were like, someone was trying to like sell off back stock. So that was great. Love having these, but this was a super boring purchase for me because I've had these sneakers now for 3 years. And even though they're the absolute most perfect go-to white walking sneaker for me, I was struggling to bring myself to use my budget to replace these sneakers towards the end of 2019, even though I should have probably done it in like November. Like they were already so worn out. I should have gone ahead and tried to find them on eBay and done it then. But I just didn't want to spend any of my budget on something so pedestrian. It's like replacing your water filter or your car battery or something. These sneakers are cute, but they're tools. They're tools to me. The same thing is true of my bras. I just kept sticking it out and sticking it out with my old, nasty, worn out, totally de-elasticized bras. And instead of spending my budget to replace my bras, I kept just spending my budget on like really special, unique things instead and just living with my nasty old bras. So that was the second thing I did as soon as the new year, the curtain rose on the new year. As soon as that happened, I replaced the majority of my bras, and it was, you guys, it was truly magical. So the sneakers weren't that big of a bite. Again, it was just $40. I was glad to have found someone selling them off on eBay. But the bras, I splashed out a little bit more on the bras. I bought 3 from a brand called Sloan & Tate, they're both indie brands. Sloan & Tate is made in downtown LA, really great. And actually they often have a buy two, get one free on their website, and they were doing that at the time. So I did buy 3 bras from them, but I only paid for 2. And then the other 3 bras I bought from Base Range. And that's like a luxurious indie brand. Amazing bras. And the Sloan and Tate ones are great. I didn't feel like I could in good conscience buy 6 bras from Base Range. It would have been so much money. Even 3 was kind of a lot for me. That was why I did 3 from Base Range and 3 from Sloan and Tate. But the Base Range bras are my absolute favorite. And I'll link all the bras I bought down below, and I'll put an asterisk next to the one from Base Range that is my absolute knock it out of the park favorite of all 6 of them. It just feels like wearing nothing. So beautiful, such a good bra. But right out of the gate, just replacing those 2 groups of things, I felt like I had spent a lot. I had spent more just on that stuff than in my entire budget for 1 month from 2019. So to me, having just come from 2019, I was like, goodness gracious, I spent so much money this month already. I kind of resolved to underspend my beauty budget. This was at the beginning of the month. I had just bought the sneakers and the bras, and I was like, you know what? Even though they were technically replacements, and I fully feel fine about having them count as replacements just under my rules. I didn't feel like I was bending or breaking any of my rules. They're the very definition of replacements. But even though that was true, I was like, it was still a lot of money. I'm just going to cool it off. I'll like do the Nuuly rental, and then I'm not going to buy anything else. That was what I was resolved to do at the beginning of the month. And we all know what happened. I completely broke that resolve and totally overspent with my beauty budget. And in the midst of my rash of blush buying, I replaced some other things too. I replaced my green color corrector. I bought the Algenist Serum Color Corrector from Sephora. I replaced my cotton kimono robe, my house robe. You guys have seen it. I've worn it in so many videos, and it was literally disintegrating. Like, I thought about trying to sew it back together because I have sewing machines that I use for my business. And it's one of those situations. I have owned that robe for probably a decade. I bought it for $25 at a thrift shop in Portland. So it may have already actually been worn even when I got it. And I have probably washed it hundreds of times and slept in it hundreds of times. I wear it every single day. It's what I wear around the house, and that has been true for a decade of my life. So that cotton is just straight up woven cotton. It's like literally like losing its shit. Like, it cannot. And I think if I had tried to sew it back together, especially at the seams, it would have just like let go of itself. It wasn't worth it to me. So I found a beautiful robe that, oh shoot, I don't have on me, but you guys saw me I was wearing it in the video about the blush haul. I was wearing it in the blush haul. It's red, and it's got these like black and white flowers. It looks very much like a Marimekko print, and that was pretty much what compelled me to get it. But it's from the brand Long Tall Sally, and I love them. They make clothes for women who are over 5'9", and I'm just about 5'9". It's the only place I've ever found a full-length robe, like a maxi robe, that will actually hit the floor, because most robes just aren't really long enough for me. So it's beautiful. It's like a floor-length cotton, just straight up woven cotton robe. It's not like super cozy, it's just like cotton, but it's very practical for me living in LA. And I love the one that I got because it has more fitted sleeves. It has these like elegant, slender sleeves. The kimono robe that I've been living with for 10 years, as much as I loved it, I didn't realize that those sleeves were making my life really difficult. Every day for 10 years, those sleeves were like getting in food as I cooked it, getting in my makeup as I put it on, I was constantly just dealing with this inconvenience of having to like get these sleeves out of the way. But you can't really roll up kimono sleeves. They were just there all the time. And when I got this new robe and I put it on, and the sleeves were just like so fitted, and I also feel like it looks very elegant and svelte. I was just like, my life just got so much easier, and I never even realized. So that was exciting. That is a true replacement because, again, it's like a staple item. Talk about something I live in. Wearing the old one was really getting like unsustainable. The part that crosses over in the front had started to split and fray, and it was just, I mean, my house robe doesn't need to be sightly, but it was extremely unsightly. I think that I'm probably going to use whatever cotton, like bits of the side and back that weren't too worn out, in a quilt that I'm making. There's a quilt that I've been working on for like years. I'll probably just cut pieces of it out because, to tell you the truth, that old kimono robe, I haven't managed to get rid of it yet. It just feels like there's so much history in the fabric, and it's just, even when I got the new one and I loved it so much, and I put on the new one and then I never wanted to wear the old one again. It's like, it's done for me. It's dead to me. But it's not dead to me. I just put it in a little box and I was just like, I'm not quite right. I was like, I need to give it a couple of weeks and just wind down, and then I'll be able to recycle it or something. But I think what I'm going to do is put it in my quilt. I think that will be a good tribute to it. Anyway, I replaced that cotton robe, and then I also replaced my microfiber bands for getting my hair out of my face. I had those ones with little cat ears, and they had just gotten so worn out, and a lot of them had gotten really gross with makeup, and the elastic was getting loose on them. And I had one like this that I was given at a spa a while back. It's like blue with red hearts on it, and I love the width of this and how it has like these multiple elastics in it. It just feels really like snug to my head and takes care of all of my hair. But I didn't really like the blue and red of that one, so I found these ones on Amazon. They're like the same thing but in these beautiful neutral colors. So there were 4 of them in the pack, so I replaced my ears with 4 of these bow style headbands. So by the time I was electrified by the silk kimono robe that I was showing you before, I had already been spending a lot on replacements, and I had already bought another robe. So you can start to see why I was kind of like, I can't believe I'm doing this. Beauty budget wise, it ended up not being that bad, especially in the context of my overall year and my general plan. But just spending wise, it was a lot for me. Not an amount that like endangers my financial health. I don't think I would have gone there, especially because I worked so hard on my YouTube channel in December. And so I had a little bit more financial flexibility in January than I usually have. So it wasn't like I was going into debt or anything like that, or like spending all of my money. I don't think I'll ever step close to that territory again after going through what I went through with my no-buy year and all of the things I learned about myself. It just felt like a lot, especially coming off of the strict beauty budget. I was a little overwhelmed by my own choices. And I definitely spent an amount on replacements in January that it would be not only unwise, but actually unsustainable for me to spend on replacements every month. So I'm not mad at myself for being a little bit replacements happy in the first month of the year. I can't overstate how much I love all of the things that I bought, and it's all stuff that's really practical for me. It's all stuff that I live in. Literally, like the sneakers, the cotton robe, the microfiber hairbands, all of that stuff. There are things that I am using on a daily basis. I'm in them on a daily basis. The green color corrector. So the fact that those replacements, just by their very nature of having been things that were worn out enough that I needed to replace them, by their very nature, they're things that I've just felt like replacing all these things has had a huge impact on my life, and a very positive impact. I didn't say this when I was talking about the bras, but I purchased 6 bras, and I think that I decluttered something like 10 or 12 bras. So my collection of bras has become extremely tidy and condensed, and they just all fit in a row in my drawer. And as I use them, the row shrinks, and as I wash them, the row grows. And every time I look into that drawer, my heart leaps with joy. I love those bras so much. I love them as much today as I did on the day that I bought them, and they just give me joy every single day. When you replace something that you live in, like a bra, when you replace the crappy ones you've been wearing with nicer ones, the impact on, well, I shouldn't say you. I try never to do that. But what I will say is that for me, because it's something that I wear every day, replacing my old worn out ones with new ones, the impact of that has been greater than the impact of buying even like that beautiful blouse that I bought last year that I'm totally obsessed with. It gives me a ton of joy when I wear it. It gives me a ton of joy when I see it in my closet. But if you add up all of the times that I've worn it and all of the times that I've gazed at it lovingly, they don't add up to be as many times as I've worn a bra. So replacing those bras, it has just given me more, even than that blouse. That's one of the things I've been seeing and thinking about this year. So the impact of all these replacements on my life has been tremendous and positive, but I'm not only trying not to spend beauty budget in February, I'm actually also trying not to replace things either. Unless it's like dire. Like I actually do think that I have used up the last of my shampoo and body soap, actually. I don't think I have any. I've been using Joe's like bar soap for his body, and maybe I'll continue to do that. But there are a couple of like things like that that are just products that you use up, that I've used up, and I may go ahead and replace a couple of those. But non-urgent replacement things like sneakers, bras, socks, like clothing items that are just kind of worn out, but they could last another month or two. Those kinds of things, I'm going to be asking them to last another month or two. And just to give myself a little bit of a breather from like the frenzy of replacing all these things that have been worn out for so long. I want to take a break from that and get back in touch with that feeling, that deep knowledge that what I have around me is good enough for now. Because I'm glad I replaced what I did replace, but the excitement of it, it got me kind of in a tizzy, and it got me a little bit out of touch with that feeling. And not to put too fine a point on it, but I can't afford to replace every single not nice thing in my house with the nicest version or the nicer version of itself all at once. I want fewer nicer things, but that doesn't mean that I can't afford to do that. I did it with a few things in January, and that's going to be it for a while. So the sneakers, that counts as one thing, even though it's a pair. I call that one. The replacement bras, that's 6 items that I brought into my life. The color corrector is 1, the cotton robe is 1, and then the microfiber hair bows, that's 4 items. So via the avenue of replacements, I brought 13 things into my life this month. Keep in mind, though, that because they were replacements, many of them actually physically did displace other things. So with the bras, for example, I took in 6, but I let go of like 10 or 12 or something like that. So that's good to know, but it's not true in every case. Like with the robe, for example, I'm still hanging on to that cotton robe, and I'll probably keep it in my life, even though I'll be repurposing it. It still won't be stuffed out. I did want to briefly touch on that Glossier order. To me, so all that stuff is still in purgatory, even though I bought it last month. I haven't reckoned with it yet, so I haven't technically decided if it's going to be my stuff. I want the things that I buy, the like self-sponsored reviews, the things I buy for review for my channel, I want them to go through purgatory. I don't want to immediately assimilate them as members of my family of stuff. So that stuff is still in purgatory. I spent $58 on that Glossier order, but to me that's like a business expense. It's just part of my channel feeding back into itself, and none of that concerns me. And I do actually feel like even the impulse to make the purchase was extra to all of the other stuff I've been talking about. So that it's very, very separate to me, but I did want to touch on it in case anybody has been following along and is wondering. And then there are 8 more things that came into my life. 6 of them are the things that I kept from the purgatory box last month. Remember when I reckoned with all the things that are in the purgatory box, I kept 6 of them, so they count as well. And then the other 2 are bathing suits. This is a little bit weird, but I mean, it's not weird. It's the thing that feels the most off to me. I received a gift card, an Amazon gift card, as a Christmas gift, and I decided to buy 2 cheap bathing suits with it. And I did that because my old bathing suit, I had one bathing suit before, is really, really nasty and completely on its last legs, and chlorine has like disintegrated the ties, and I just was like, it was in the back of my mind as something that kind of needed to be replaced. But I'm not in a bathing suit enough, and I don't have a lifestyle that would make me want to like seek the perfect, like fewer, nicer bathing suit, like the bathing suit equivalent of this, the robe. I didn't feel like I had the money for that. I didn't feel like I had the time for that, and I didn't have the will. I didn't have the focus on bathing suits and the love for bathing suits, and I don't live in my bathing suit enough to make it feel like it was worth my money or my time to do that. So it just felt like more of a practical thing. And I had seen, who was I watching? There's a YouTuber named Shay Whitney. She does like fashion content. She recommended this bathing suit. She was like, this is like the best cheap bathing suit I've ever had. It's so amazing. And it was a very, very high-waisted bikini that was like outlandish looking. And just, I saw that and I was just like, I'll just get that one with my Amazon gift card, and then I'll just be able to like wear that one out. And then when I went on the website to the little shop where that bikini was being sold, there was another bathing suit on there that was super cute. They were each $25. My gift card was for $50, and so I just bought them both. And they're right here. This is the bottom half of the very, very high-waisted bikini. The top half is just like a triangle bikini top. And then the other one is, it's like a very vintage-inspired style. I don't know if you can see, but it's got like these high-waisted bottoms, and then this ties behind, and these strips come all the way down to the waist, and then it's got a really, really low open back. So it's super cute. They're both super cute. The fabric feels incredibly sturdy for how inexpensive they were. It's just, it feels against my ethos because they're so cheap. It's like they're from Amazon. It's also not fewer. I replaced one old bathing suit with 2 new bathing suits, so like my number of bathing suits has doubled, and that's like the opposite of what I'm trying to do. It was a rash decision, and I feel like the entire picture of like having gotten these bathing suits doesn't really fit with what I'm trying to do. So it might have been a mistake, but I'm going to live with it. And I have worn each of these suits one time since I got them, and I like them, and they're perfectly fine, and they're perfectly cute. It was potentially just like a lesson, but also maybe these bathing suits will last a really, really long time, and I'll have gotten both of them for the low cost of one $50 gift card. So we'll find out, but I just wanted to let you guys know and to report back that those were 2 other things that entered my life. So if you add it all together, the things that I bought, the things that I bought to replace other things, the things that I kept from the purgatory box, and those 2 bathing suits, 26 things entered my life this month. To me, it feels like a lot. I will say that I can report now that 170 things exited my life this month. So roughly 170, I think it might have been like 168 or something when I counted. And I do need to retract that in my check-in video, I got carried away and I was like, hundreds of things exited my life this month. I was feeling like it was hundreds. I was looking at the check marks thing and I was, in my bad math way, I was like, that must be hundreds. I thought it was probably over 200, but it was really just almost 170. I think also in the back of my head, I'm sort of thinking about the actual hundreds of things that I decluttered at the end of last year. But if you're starting with my stuff number count at the beginning of 2020, it was only roughly 170 things that exited my life this month, and 26 things entered my life, which means that my stuff number overall has gone down by about 150. I have 150 fewer things than I had a month ago. I would like to have even fewer than that at the end of the year. I would definitely like that. But I feel like it's a respectable start. Also, in theory, I would like this to be the most things that I acquire in a month, 26 things. I'm not holding myself to that. I'm not even necessarily saying that that's a goal. It's just in theory, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking that I would like that to be true. Funnily enough, I feel like even though the brunt of what I acquired this month was because of buying stuff, only 6 of it was PR. And it wasn't even all PR, it was like gifts. Only 6 of the things that I kept this month that I didn't buy myself were gifts. All of the rest were things that I bought myself or that I bought with that gift card. But I think that probably the thing that will endanger my goal of like acquiring fewer things each month, I think it'll be PR. I don't think it's going to be my own purchasing behavior and replacements that's endangering keeping my acquisition number low. I think it's going to be PR. Who knows though? I have gotten barely any PR since the beginning of the year, so maybe the brands are just like laying off it because it's my year of less stuff. If I were to acquire 26 things every month, the way that I did this month, that would be 312 items for the year. And if I acquire 312 items this year, that will make it hard to significantly reduce my stuff number. That will make it hard. Unless the vast majority of the things that I acquire are like body care and skincare items that I can use up and have exit my collection within like a matter of months of acquiring them, which that could be the case too, because I do feel like a number of the things that I am going to be like potentially keeping in PR are going to be that kind of things that I can keep in good conscience because I know it's going to be stuff in that I'll use up and then stuff out. But I'll be keeping that in mind going forward. I'll be keeping it in mind that 25, 26 things a month, that's over 300 things for the year. And that's why I'm doing this project, because it doesn't seem too crazy to be taking on 10, 15, 20 things a month, especially with PR coming into my life. And then when you think about it in terms of the year, the yearly sum, it's like, oh, goodness gracious, well, what can I do to make sure that I don't end up with 300 more things at the end of this year than I started with? With regards to the more fluid budget, all in all, I do feel like the freedom is making me think harder about luxurious items and what kind of place they might have in my life as a consumer. So my desire to purchase that silk bed jacket and my plan to complete the set with the pants if I can find them, it's made me focus my attention on the fact that I do believe that luxurious items have a place in my life sometimes, like from time to time. especially if I only have like one of that type of item. Like if these are my only pajamas, then I'm more okay with them having been more of an investment. I'm more okay with it having cost more of my yearly budget to acquire them, because it's the kind of thing that I am living in. They're going to make me feel good all the time, as opposed to investing with large chunks of my budget in pieces like that face sweater or the beautiful ruffled blouse, which are things that I am really glad that I have and that I do enjoy every time I wear them. I just can't possibly wear them as frequently as I'm going to be wearing my pajamas. The catch is that buying items like this, buying items like those pajamas, boxes me out not only of buying more luxurious items later in the year, but of buying a larger number of less luxurious items as well. I did know this last year, and I talked about it from time to time on my channel. It's not like it's new information for me, but there's something about moderating by force of will, choosing to scale back on my buying behavior because of my past actions instead of because of my rules. There's something about doing that that's driving it home even further. And I like that. I don't want to speak too soon because there might be more struggles on the horizon. Like this past month just hit me like a ton of bricks, and that could happen again. So I don't want to speak too soon, but I do feel like meditating on these purchases this month has evolved me somewhat. I kind of feel like just a little bit more mature about my place in life, and a little bit more realistic about the capabilities and the limits of my actual finances than I ever have before. Even more mature about it than I did last year, because last year it was like my rules were my nanny. And this year it's just like my awareness of my own actions and accountability to my actions. That's my nanny. That's me. I'm my own nanny. And the best thing of all is within that freedom, knowing. I know that because I bought that silk bed jacket, I can't splurge on anything like that for quite a while. I know that that's true because I know how much money I have to spend on that kind of thing. I've decided in advance, and I know how much of it is gone and how much of it is still there. That knowledge makes me feel calm and level-headed. It makes me feel less prone to shame or guilt about the things that I already did buy, and it makes me feel strong and determined to stay on the straight and narrow for the rest of the year. And I think that is it. My budget is down by $364. My stuff number is down by roughly 150, and I'm pretty much on a low buy, kind of a bit of a no buy until March-ish. That's what's happening now. That's how I spend my budget in January. That's how I feel about it. That's how much stuff I have. And I hope you enjoyed this video. I really appreciate you being here with me. And I hope that this goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. I hope that you are remembering to take extra good care of yourself so that you can be the most effective version of yourself as you do your work in the world.